The story of New Mexico is a remarkable story of human survival, cultural exchange, conflict, and adaptation. Located in the southwestern region of the United States, New Mexico has experienced more than 12,000 years of human history. Its past includes the lives of indigenous communities, the arrival of Spanish explorer, centuries of colonial rule, Mexico independence, American expansion, and the development of a modern multicultural society. The state's identity today is shaped by the continuous interaction between Native American traditions, Hispanic heritage, and later American influences. New Mexico is unique because many layers of story remain visible in its landscape, communities, architectures, and traditions. Ancient pueblos, Spanish missions, historic trade routes, and scientific research center all represent different chapters of its long and complex development. Long before European explorers arrived, the region that is now New Mexico was home to diverse indigenous societies. Human settlement in the area dated back at least 11 years, including the Clovis culture, whose people hunted large animals and left behind evidence of composite and stone tools. Over thousands of years, indigenous groups adapted to the challenging desert environment by developing new methods of survival, agriculture, and settlement. The ancestral Pueblos became one of the most important early civilizations in New Mexico. They developed farming techniques, built permanent villages, created pottery, and developed complex social systems. Around 1050 CE, Pueblo communities constructed large planned settlements with multiple rooms, irrigation systems, and organized road network. Pueblo Bonito in Soca Canyon was one of the most impressive examples, containing hundreds of rooms and reflecting advanced architectural knowledge. Pueblo people developed successful ways to live in an environment with limited water resources. They used irrigation canals, check dams, and hillside terraces to support agriculture. Their cultural traditions, including poetry making, weaving, and ceremonial practices, continue among modern Pueblo communities. Another important group in New Mexico's story was the Athabascan speaking peoples, including Navajo and Apache. Unlike the agricultural Pueblo societies, many Navajo and Apache groups followed more mobile lifestyle. They adapted to the Southwest environment through mounting, trading, herding, and later developing a strong horses culture. European interest in New Mexico began during the era of Spanish explorations. Early explorers thirst for wealth and legendary cities, including the mythical seven cities of Cibola. In 1540, Francisco Vasco de Coronado led a major expedition into the southwest but found indigenous towns rather than the gold-rich cities he expected. Permanent Spanish colonizations began in 1598 when Juan de Onay established the first Spanish settlement in New Mexico. The colony became part of Spain's northern frontier in America, with Santa Fe later became its capital. The Spanish introduced Christianity, European farming methods, livestock, and new political systems. However, Spanish rule created significant tensions with indigenous communities. Missionaries attempted to convert Pueblo people to Christianity, while colonial authorities demanded labor, resources, and obedience. Indigenous traditions and religious practices were often restricted, creating resentment among many Pueblo communities. The relationship between Spanish settlers and native peoples was complicated. There were periods of cooperation, trade, and cultural exchange, but also violence and exploitations. Diseases introduced by European caused severe population losses among indigenous communities, further weakening their societies. One of the most significant events in New Mexico's story was the Pueblo Revolt of 1680. After a decade of Spanish colonial rule, many Pueblo people became increasingly dissatisfied with forced labor, religious restrictions, and colonial policies. A Pueblo religious leader named Pope organized resistance against Spanish authority. The revolt successfully removed the Spanish from much of New Mexico. Spanish settlers were forced to retreat south, and Pueblo communities temporarily established independent control over the region. This event was one of the most successful indigenous uprising against European colonial rule in North America. However, internal disagreements among Pueblo groups and continued challenges from neighboring tribes weakened their political unity. In 1692, Spanish forces led by Diego de Vargas returned and peacefully regained control over the territory. Although Spanish rule was restored, the Pueblo Revolt exchanged the relationship between indigenous communities and colonial authorities. In 1821, Mexico gained independence from Spain, and New Mexico became a northern territory of newly independent Mexican nation. The transitions from Spanish to Mexican control occurred with relatively little conflict compared with other regions. During the Mexican period, trade expanded significantly. Opening of the Santa Fe trade connected New Mexico with United States and encouraged economic and exchange between American traders and local communities. Santa Fe became an important commercial center linking different regions of North America. Although Mexico introduced ideas of political equality, New Mexico remained geographically isolated from Central Mexico authorities. Local communities continued to maintain strong regional identities. Conflicts between local interest and central government control contributed to political instability, including the Rio Arriba Rebellion of 1837. The relationship between New Mexico and the United States changed dramatically after the Mexican-American War. In 1848, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo transferred New Mexico and other southwestern territories to the United States. The United States established the New Mexico Territory in 1850. The transition brought new legality systems, political structures, and economic opportunities. However, it also created tensions over land ownership, cultural identity, and rights of Hispanic and indigenous communities. Many Hispanic communities struggled to protect traditional land grants that had been organized under Spanish and Mexican governments. Legal changes often favored newcomers who understood American legal system better than local residents. During the American Civil War, New Mexico became a strategic reserve. Confederate forces attempted to control the territory in 1862, but were defeated at the Battle of the Glorieta Falls. Union forces maintained control of New Mexico, protecting an important route in southwest. During the late 19th century, railroads transformed New Mexico's economy. The arrival of Santa Fe Rail connected the territory with national markets and encouraged population growth. Agriculture, cattle ranching, mining, and trade expanded the revenue. The discovery of mineral and development of transportation networks helped towns grow. Education also improved, with new schools and colleges established across the territory. After years of political debate, New Mexico finally achieved statehood on January 6, 1912, became the 47th state of the United States. Statehood marked a new chapter while preserving the region's unique cultural tradition. The 20th century brought major scientific and military importance to the New Mexico. During the World War II, the state became central to the Manhattan Project, a secret program to develop the first atomic bomb. Scientists and engineers worked at Los Alamos, a research facility created in the mountains of northern New Mexico on July 6, 1945. The first successful nuclear test, known as the Trinity test, was conducted near Alamogordo. This event changed world history and introduced the atomic age. Today, New Mexico is organized for its diverse cultural heritage. Indigenous communities continue to preserve traditional languages, arts, ceremonies, and ways of life. Hispanic communities maintain traditions connected to centuries of Spanish and Mexican history. Modern residents have also contributed to new ideas, industries, and cultural influences. The state's art, architecture, foods, and festivals reflect this mixture of cultures. Cities such as Santa Fe have become more internationally known for their historic character and historic traditions. New Mexico's history is not only a story on political changes and conflicts, it is also a story of resilience. Generations of people have adapted to environmental challenges, cultural transformations, and social challenges while maintaining a strong connection to their heritage. The story, New Mexico, represents thousands of years of human experience, from ancient indigenous civilization and Pueblo communities to Spanish colonizations, Mexican independence, American statehood, and scientific advancement. Each period has contributed to the identity of the state. New Mexico remains a place where different cultures meet and influence on other. The story demonstrates the importance of understanding both achievements and struggles of the past.